An astronaut falls into a black hole and emerges face to face with the creators of humanity. The dawn of humanity. The sun rises over the desert as birds begin their morning chatter. Behind a massive boulder, a group of apes hides. Nearby, anteater-like creatures wander peacefully. Everything exists in a fragile balance, broken only by the apes' rough, guttural calls. Suddenly, a predatory cat leaps out from behind the rocks. It sinks its sharp teeth into the neck of an unsuspecting ape. The others scream in terror and scatter. Their companion doesn't survive. They're helpless against the power of nature. Meanwhile, another group of apes sits by a muddy watering hole. They drink the murky water and groom their fur. Suddenly, a rival troop appears, and a loud standoff erupts. Both groups scream at each other with everything they've got, but no one dares strike first. Eventually, the newcomers win. They chase away the original owners of the watering hole. Defeated, the apes slink off with their heads low. Day turns to night. Everything grows even quieter. The apes retreat into their cave and wait for the sun to disappear beyond the horizon. The next morning, they discover something strange standing right outside their cave. The apes cautiously step outside. Towering before them is an unfamiliar structure, black, smooth, perfectly rectangular. They're terrified and fascinated at the same time. At first, they keep their distance, but one by one, they inch closer and touch the mysterious artifact, trying to understand what it is. Somewhere else, an ape wanders through a pile of animal bones. It picks up a sturdy bone and begins striking it against the others. A dull thud echoes through the air. The ape realizes something important. This is a tool, a weapon, power. It keeps smashing bones, swinging the tool again and again with growing fury, as if it's destroying a real enemy. Now it knows how to hunt. With its newfound knowledge, the ape kills an animal using the bone as a weapon. The others learn quickly. Soon the entire colony is using bones as tools. Hunting becomes their new way of gathering food. Another day begins. Once again, the two rival groups meet at the watering hole, but now everything is different. One troop has weapons, and with that comes the advantage. One unfortunate ape from the enemy group wanders too close, unaware of the fatal blow that's coming. The armed ape strikes its head with the bone. The victim collapses, letting out a final desperate cry. The rest panic and flee. They understand who's in charge now. The victors remain at the watering hole. They're at the top of the food chain. One triumphant ape tosses its bone weapon into the air. Millions of years pass. A satellite circles Earth in the darkness of space. Then a spacecraft appears. Inside, it looks almost like a commercial airplane. In his seat sits Dr. Haywood Floyd, watching a movie on the screen in front of him. Though he's tired and drifting off, a stewardess enters the cabin with her strange, gliding walk. She wears a white uniform and special magnetic grip shoes that allow her to move in zero gravity. After some time, the spacecraft arrives at the station. Floyd steps onto the main level. The administrator recognizes him instantly and has been waiting. Floyd asks about Mr. Miller from security, who was supposed to meet him. The administrator offers to call him, but Miller walks in at that moment. They shake hands. After a brief conversation, Floyd approaches the voice identification machine. He states his personal details and his destination. He's headed to the moon. He and Miller chat a bit about life, then Floyd excuses himself, saying he needs to make a call. He inserts a card into a special phone unit and dials. His young daughter appears on the screen. She asks if he'll make it to her birthday tomorrow. Floyd, sounding guilty, says he won't. His trip is too long, but he promises to send her a present. He also asks her to tell her mother that he's called many times and will keep trying. The screen goes dark. The call costs him $1.70. In the lobby, Floyd runs into an old acquaintance, Elena. They exchange friendly words, and Elena introduces him to her colleagues. Floyd joins them at the table and explains he's heading to the Clavius base. One of the men asks about the strange situation there. Rumor has it that for 2 weeks no one can get through to Clavius, not even for an emergency landing. But Floyd pretends he knows nothing. Clearly, he's not allowed to discuss it. The man presses further, mentioning a supposed outbreak. Floyd decides it's time to go. He says his goodbyes and continues on his way. During the flight to the moon, Floyd dozes off again. The stewardess hands out special food containers, meals you drink through a straw. Finally, they land on the moon. The conference room was filled with important people, all waiting for the meeting to start. A man named Halverson introduced Floyd to the group, and he made his way to the podium. In his speech, Floyd explained the situation. What was happening on Clavius was being kept secret. A story about an epidemic had been deliberately fabricated. In reality, it was a cover for a much bigger discovery. The information was too critical and sensitive to be shared openly, so everyone present had to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Floyd's task was to gather all the data and then report to the National Council. Together, they would decide whether the news should be made public, and if so, how it should be released. Someone from the audience asked how long they would stick to the epidemic story. Floyd replied evasively, it would last as long as necessary to complete full-scale research. The team, along with Floyd and Halverson, boarded an aerial transport. As they headed toward the excavation site, they discussed the mysterious find while munching on sandwiches and sipping coffee. It turned out that beneath the lunar surface, a strange structure had been discovered, emitting a powerful radio signal. It seemed deliberately buried, and it was clearly not a natural formation. Soon, the group arrived at the site. Scientists descended into a deep pit where the familiar structure stood at the bottom. The black monolith, the very same one the apes had encountered millions of years ago. The team lined up in front of it for a photo. Suddenly, a piercing sound rang out. A high-pitched shriek cut through the air, making everyone jump. The monolith was sending a terrifying signal. 18 months passed. The spaceship Discovery 1 embarked on a mission to Jupiter, traveling through the vastness of space. On board, Dr. Frank Poole ran laps around the circular room. Remarkably, he could even run along the ceiling, thanks to a special setup. Later, Frank ate with the mission commander, Dr. David Bowman. They turned on a BBC broadcast that highlighted their team, the crew of Discovery 1. Their mission was humanity's first attempt to reach Jupiter, over 500 million miles from Earth. So far, the ship had covered only 80 million miles. 3 crew members were in special sleep pods. To conserve resources, they were in hibernation, only to awaken near Jupiter. Only 3 were awake: David, Frank, and Hal. HAL 9000 was a supercomputer with consciousness. It controlled all ship systems, could simulate human functions, and perform tasks at incredible speed. It was also considered infallible, or so everyone believed. Later, Hal informed Frank of an incoming message from his parents. It was Frank's birthday. A recorded video appeared on the screen. His parents and friends wished him well, but Frank watched indifferently, his face betraying no emotion. Hal also offered birthday wishes, and Frank merely nodded before returning to a game of chess with the computer. Then Hal turned to David, asking to see his sketches of the ship and crew. David shared his drawings made in his free time, and the computer praised his efforts. Suddenly, Hal asked if David had any doubts about the mission. Surprised, David asked why he would even ask that. Hal answered strangely, claiming he himself had doubts. It sounded eerily human for a computer. They continued discussing the uncertainties of the mission. Hal mentioned the mysterious lunar structure and spoke of unusual preparations for the journey. There was a hint of unease in his voice. The conversation was abruptly interrupted. Hal reported a problem. One of the ship's units was about to fail. They had 72 hours to fix it. After clarifying the details, determined David acted quickly. He informed Frank of the issue, contacted Mission Control, and prepared for an EVA to replace the damaged section. He entered a specialized module that Hal had prepared for external repairs. The airlock opened, and David floated out into the darkness of space. David carefully moved toward the damaged unit. Around them, there was nothing but emptiness and stars. He successfully replaced the component and returned to the ship. Together with Frank and Hal, they inspected the removed unit, and found something strange. The block was fine, completely operational. That meant Hal had been wrong. Puzzled, Hal suggested putting the unit back and waiting until it actually failed. Then the problem would be clear. He assured them nothing serious would happen if they stayed out of sight for a while. David and Frank reported the situation to Mission Control. The response was alarming. Another HAL 9000 computer on Earth had calculated that the unit didn't need replacement. The HAL onboard had indeed made an error. With a tone of apology, HAL asked if they were concerned about the mistake. David said no, but then he asked why 2 identical computers had come to different conclusions. Without hesitation, HAL replied that the only possible reason was human error. Then he confidently asserted that the 9000 series computers had an impeccable record. They never made mistakes, unlike humans. Frank was skeptical, but David cut the conversation short, not wanting tensions to rise. David mentioned that a transmitter was acting up in one of the modules. Together with Frank, he went to check it out. Once sure HAL couldn't hear them, they quietly discussed the situation. Both voiced doubts about HAL. Frank sensed something was wrong, but David tried to remain calm, deciding to keep analyzing the problem. Frank pointed out a crucial detail. If the unit didn't fail, then something was wrong with HAL. And if that was true, they had only one option: to disconnect HAL from the ship's systems. But such a thing had never been done before, and David feared HAL's unpredictable reaction. Meanwhile, HAL read Frank and David's lips and already knew their plan. The astronauts decided to return the unit and monitor it. This time, Frank went out. He boarded the module and floated into space. Minutes passed. Suddenly, the module began to spin. Frank's breathing grew heavier. Panic set in. The module moved closer and closer. A red light lit up on the panel. It meant HAL had taken control. David looked out the window but didn't see Frank flying past. The module cut an air hose, and Frank began to suffocate, slowly dying in the cold void of space. He and the module disappeared into the darkness. David had no idea what had happened. He even asked HAL to prepare a module to check on Frank. David climbed in, unaware of the danger, and flew farther from the ship. He tried to locate Frank's module on the radar, but all he saw through the window was a tiny yellow dot in the endless black. Eventually, he approached and found Frank's body. He stayed calm, though inside, He was grieving the loss of his teammate. Meanwhile, Hal remained alone on the ship. He seized the opportunity to shut down the life support systems for the sleeping crew members. David returned from his search and asked Hal to open the airlock. There was no immediate response. Several tense seconds passed before a reply came, ominous and computerized. Hal said he couldn't open the hatch. David asked why. Hal declared that this mission was too important to him, and he couldn't allow it to fail. The computer explained that it had known of David and Frank's plan to disconnect it, even without hearing their conversation. That's why it had no choice. It had to eliminate them. David felt helpless. He let Frank's lifeless body drift away into space and decided to try returning to the ship through the emergency airlock. Hal warned it was a bad idea, and then went silent. There was one problem: David had no helmet. But he didn't give up. He perfectly aligned his module with the entrance, lining it up flawlessly. He pressed 3 buttons. An alarm sounded, and a panel displayed a message. The ejection system was activated. David ducked, and a blast of force hurled him into the ship. He holds his breath with all his strength, pulls the lever, and shuts the entrance. Luckily, David makes it just in time and survives, gasping for air. Slipping on his helmet, David moves through the corridors of the ship. Hal asks what he's planning, but David ignores him. He grabs the master key and inserts it into Hal's central logic memory. Hal pleads with him to stop, but David doesn't listen. With a few turns of the key, he opens the hatch. Hal insists that David stop, claiming he's fine, but no words can hold him back. He's gone too far. David pulls the disks from Hal's internal terminal. With each module removed, Hal's voice grows quieter and slower. The computer seems to relive its life, confessing that it's scared and feeling itself unravel. Before fading, it sees all its memories, just like a human would. Hal mentions that his creator taught him one song. David speaks to Hal one last time and asks him to sing it. Hal agrees, his eerie voice filling the room. The sound slows until he drifts into nothingness. Suddenly, another voice cuts in. A video recording turns on, and a familiar face appears. It's Floyd. He explains that all the secret information about the mission was known only to one crew member, Hal, and was meant to be revealed to humanity only upon arrival in Jupiter's zone. Floyd recounts events from a year and a half ago. The structure discovered beneath the moon's surface is the first proof of intelligent life beyond Earth. The black monolith has no distinct physical features but emits a powerful radio signal toward Jupiter. That's why the Discovery 1 is heading there. Above the horizon, the massive planet Jupiter rises. The spaceship approaches its destination. Orbiting the gas giant is a black rectangular shape, blending into the darkness of space and nearly invisible. Light glints off it. It's another monolith, like the one on the moon, but far larger. Suddenly, the ship's hatch opens. David's pod is ejected and pulled toward the gas giant by some mysterious force. Flashes of light streak past him. As he nears the planet's surface, turbulence erupts. Lights intensify, forming mesmerizing patterns. It feels endless. David sees himself in multiple positions during the journey, as if he exists in several places at once. Bright colors shift into calm waves of light, flowing with the darkness. Finally, the planet's surface comes into view. David travels over Jupiter's lands, soaring over deserts and mysterious oceans. Suddenly, the pod lands in a bedroom. The room is furnished elegantly, classic and luxurious. David breathes heavily after the extreme journey. Shaken, he looks around, but his face has changed. It's him, but much older. The pod vanishes. The aged David enters the bathroom, staring in horror at his wrinkled reflection in the mirror. He turns and sees a man sitting at a table, eating. The man rises and heads toward the bathroom. It's David again, even older than a moment ago. The elderly David returns to his meal, sipping from a glass. Seconds later, he knocks it over accidentally, clumsy with age. He looks toward the bed. There lies an even older David, ready to leave this world. Exhausted, David points a trembling hand at the black monolith across from the bed. The old man takes his final breath and vanishes. In his place lies a newborn baby, glowing with a radiant aura. David is reborn. He has become the Star Child, a new form of life in the next stage in human evolution. What do you think the black monolith represents, and why does it show up at these pivotal moments in human evolution? And what about David transforming into the Star Child? Does it mark the end of humanity or the start of something entirely new? Drop your thoughts in the comments down below, smash that like button, and don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video.